A student is stabbed in a county high school, caught on camera.
He was just reaching until he was able to get hold of a knife, and he just started stabbing him.
Tonight, we show you the video.
We need to do more work. Kids don't feel protected.
Another tense day of testimony from Marilyn Mosby in her federal trial, the contradicting information that could factor into the jury's decision. Democrats' plans to tackle juvenile crime, a sharp contrast to the DJS secretary's philosophies. New tonight, we take a closer look at the differences and how it could play out in Annapolis. Then, the mayor touts falling homicide rates, but some argue his message is missing the mark. What his competition says he has to do for residents to feel safe.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. A fight leads to a stabbing at Kenwood High School in Baltimore County, forcing the school into a lockdown for hours this afternoon.
And it was caught on camera. We want to warn you that some of the footage that you will see may be disturbing. Well, this fight and the stabbing, just the latest instance of violence inside a Maryland school, raising renewed concerns about student safety.
The video comes one day after state Democrats unveil a comprehensive juvenile crime plan, promising more accountability for young offenders. We have team coverage of the juvenile crime crisis. Jeff Abel and Rebecca Pryor looking into the plan's reception among state's attorneys and the Department of Juvenile Services. We begin with Vincent Hill, though, and an update on this troubling incident at Kenwood High School. Vincent?
Yeah, well, one teen is recovering tonight. The other was arrested, once again reigniting the issue of school safety. In Baltimore County, a violent attack captured on video at Kenwood High School. One student, dressed in dark clothing, assaults another. That student, seen in the gray sweatshirt, then pulls out a sharp object and stabs his attacker twice.
We have a lot more work to do.
Darren Badillo of the Baltimore Youth Coalition calling the school problematic.
Kenwood High School, from the past 3 years of just monitoring violence in schools, that Kenwood has been repeat offenders. Multiple incidents happening at that school.
Hey, yo! Oh!
Last month, Kenwood was placed on a lockdown after reports of a gun inside the school. Students can be seen running from the building. In 2022, a loaded gun was found in a backpack at the school. And in 2020, 2 students were arrested for robbing another student on campus.
I've been in contact with Dr. Yarbrough, and I know that violence is at the top of our priority list.
In Baltimore City,
we are supporting and listening to our school leaders, what they are telling us.
City Schools CEO, Dr. Sonia Santelises, listening to leaders, but not listening to students who care more about safety than learning.
We can have more security surrounding the school, or at least by the school. I can feel more safe while I'm in school or not in school.
This after a Dunbar High School student was found with 3 loaded guns. Santelises calling guns in city schools a product of the environment.
Schools are a reflection of the society that they are in, right? So we know that we have a challenge in this region around guns.
And despite multiple guns being found in Baltimore City schools this year, the CEO says there's nothing to worry about.
Young people are safe, and when we have incidents where a young person may not be safe, we have mobilized and are building and have the systems to respond quickly.
Badillo says actions speak much louder than words.
We need to step up as parents and leaders to make sure that we're doing what we need to do so children feel safe and they don't feel they need to bring a weapon to school.
And we did reach out to Baltimore County Schools about Badillo's claims of Kenwood High School. We have not yet heard back. Meanwhile, last week, the CEO of Baltimore City Schools was pressed about getting armed school resource officers back in Baltimore City Schools. For now, we're live in Baltimore. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Do you think it's appropriate that a convicted sex offender is a student inside of a public high school?
Can you just hold on just one second?
Well,
I'll just get right back to you on that. Thank you very much.
Why are you taking my microphone?
The Department of Juvenile Services Secretary facing questions over a Project Baltimore investigation that found a 15-year-old convicted sex offender attending Patterson High School.
What do you say to parents who had students that were in class with a convicted sex offender and they didn't know?
So I think that you should get the response force in the proper way and not do paparazzi stuff right outside it.
Paparazzi? I'm at a public event, sir. I mean, just what do you say to parents? That's all we're asking. What do you say to parents who had students who were sitting in class with a convicted sex offender?
I don't know anything about the case you've sent to me. That's why we're looking it up and we're responding to you. But thank you very much.
By law, Maryland does have a juvenile sex offender registry, but it's only for law enforcement. It is not public. A student who's not on the registry cannot be barred from attending school in person, except in certain cases. And while Schiraldi would not answer Project Baltimore's questions about the situation at Patterson, he has spoken in the past about public sex offender registries. In 2020, he took part in a panel discussion arguing registries don't keep the public safe and they create a stigma that makes it hard for sex offenders to find jobs or places to live.
If all you cared about was public safety and you didn't care one jot about dignity and people's rights as citizens, even then it's lousy public policy, doubly so when you actually care about your fellow human beings.
Well, the day after Project Baltimore tried to speak with Schiraldi, his office sent a statement which says, in part, the secretary believes in accountability for kids who are violating the law. Using a data-informed approach, he is leading the charge to create better outcomes for youth, families, and communities. Project Baltimore will stay on this developing story, which has already captured the attention of lawmakers in Annapolis. On Monday, we're going to hear from a Baltimore County delegate who is requesting legislation to ensure this cannot happen again. And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think the public sex offender registry should be abolished? So far, 97% of people who voted say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Secretary Schiraldi has been an opponent of parole and probation, saying those services don't rehabilitate young people. A sharp contrast from the message of accountability coming from Annapolis as Democrats seek probation reform, part of their juvenile crime plan. Fox 45's Jeff Abel joins us live with the budding clash of these ideas. Jeff.
That's right. You know, Vincent Schiraldi has long endorsed accountability for juveniles. He just has not endorsed probation for juveniles. And that is raising a lot of questions about what accountability really looks like.
Mic check.
On the day lawmakers returned to Annapolis,
good morning,
the governor made his point.
And the hallmark of what I hope to see in any juvenile justice legislation that's going to make it to my desk can be summarized in one word: accountability. We need accountability. Accountable. Accountable.
Over and over again.
When accountable,
the governor made it clear.
Accountable. Is accountable.
Those who fight crime and those who commit crime will be held
accountable too.
But what does accountability look like?
Accountability is a great word. But if you're not accountable, the next word is who's going to be blamed.
When lawmakers released their proposed measures aimed at making juveniles more accountable today, one of the key components called for an increase in probation limits for young offenders, in some cases doubling them, a move that brought praise from both Democrats and Republicans.
We need to make sure that actions have consequences.
But extending probation is not exactly what Maryland's Juvenile Services Secretary has endorsed. In his book, released 4 months ago, Vincent Schiraldi makes his case for abolishing probation and parole, calling it the illusion of safety and freedom. In April, he's slated to speak to Harvard Law School about ending probation.
If he can't get aboard with the program, he's going to be writing another resume.
Political scientist John Deedy predicts if it comes to a battle of ideologies, lawmakers will have the final say.
More than likely, if he doesn't like the program he's being given, he's going to, there's going to be a resignation on a Friday and they'll find someone else by Monday.
Well, Schiraldi did not attend the governor's news conference announcing these proposed reforms yesterday, and he has yet to comment on whether he supports the newly proposed reforms. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Well, Fox 45 News continues to investigate Schiraldi's track record in professional relationships. On Monday, we looked into his right-hand man, Mark Schindler. In the 6 months when Schindler served as interim director of juvenile corrections in D.C., he put reforms in place similar to the ones we now have in Maryland. In that time, our investigation uncovered several reports showing 10 juveniles who were already under supervision that were arrested for murder. Another 7 were killed. On Tuesday, we told you about a Washington Times report on a lawsuit accusing a city official in Washington of checking a 16-year-old out of a juvenile facility while Vincent Schiraldi was the director of juvenile corrections. The lawsuit claims the official took the boy out of the youth center and improper activity took place, but the lawsuit was dismissed. Last night, we took a closer look at his relationship with Governor Moore dating back more than 10 years. The governor's Robin Hood Foundation provided much of the funding for research into Schiraldi's book, leading one policy expert to question Schiraldi's influence on the governor's juvenile crime views.
Very strange that he's almost writing a template for him and Wes Moore's plan at DJS. It's like they had it ready to go, or at least Vince Schiraldi did, and Wes Moore's helping him enact it.
Fox 45 News has been investigating Secretary Schiraldi and the Department of Juvenile Services for months. You can find our complete coverage online at foxbaltimore.com.
The State Democrats' juvenile crime plan leads to split reaction in the legal community. Public defenders view the proposal as a return of decades of policies that hurt children and fail to solve crime issues. The state's attorneys say that plan includes much of what they've been requesting for months. Today, Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor caught up with Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates and has his perspective.
The extensive juvenile crime plan Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates has been pushing for months now.
I think our future is at stake, and the laws just aren't working.
We have to begin to hold juveniles accountable.
Seemingly serving as an outline for a new juvenile justice reform bill set to replace Senator Jill Carter's controversial reform laws taking effect just a year and a half ago. In that short amount of time, Bates claiming his office alone seeing a 99% increase in juvenile charges.
So you clearly see that something has changed dramatically. And what was that change? The law here.
On Wednesday,
aren't getting the services they need.
Governor Wes Moore, alongside dozens of Democratic lawmakers, introducing a laundry list of new legislative priorities with a focus on accountability for both young offenders and the state's juvenile justice system.
We need to make sure that actions have consequences.
We're focusing on making sure that the system actually works.
Top priorities paralleled in both plans: shortening the deadline for DJS intake decisions, increasing probation limits for juvenile offenders, strengthening staffing within DJS's ankle monitoring unit, and allowing children under the age of 13 to be charged with violent crimes currently blocked under the prior legislation, including firearm offenses, car thefts, sexual assaults, and animal abuse.
That just tells me great minds are thinking alike.
As car thefts continue taking off across the city, Bates, confident enforcing consequences no matter the age, will finally help curb the troubling crime trend.
I think it will have an impact because you will not see older people, older kids using and abusing younger kids. Because keep in mind, this is not once again about incarcerating young people, it's about also protecting young people.
Although for more immediate change, Bates believes tweaks still need to be made to DJS intake practices immediately following all car thefts.
In this plan, DJS, I believe, would have almost 15 days before they forwarded the case to us. I would love to be able to be there day one with the intake. That way we can work with the police to put together a better case. 15 days I still feel is way too long.
And more waiting now begins as the bill enters a lengthy legislative process where arguments are expected on both sides of the aisle.
They have this bizarre view that we shouldn't have parents and children be able to work together to answer questions about crimes. We need to change that law.
I think that what's necessary is that any changes are based on actual data.
This is the outcry from police, prosecutors, and victims. Continue to demand action be taken right now. Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
The Maryland State's Attorneys Association sent Fox 45 News the following statements in response to a series of questions we sent. When asked, do you support the legislative package announced by General Assembly leaders yesterday, the group said it generally supports the legislation. We also asked if the legislative package goes far enough to help their offices hold juvenile offenders accountable. The MSAA said it believes it is a good start in addressing the issues we've identified in juvenile law. And in response to our question, are you concerned repealing the Child Interrogation Protection Act is not part of the proposed package? The organization said it believes the child interrogation issue still needs to be addressed, whether it's in this legislation as an amendment or in another bill.
Today was Shock Trauma Day at the State House as healthcare professionals from the Baltimore Hospital met with lawmakers to raise awareness about the hospital's role in the EMS system. Chief Surgeon Dr. Thomas Scalia was one of more than 60 trauma doctors, nurses, clinicians, and supporters who were there. He emphasized the need for increased funding and support for Maryland's statewide trauma system.
There's always been a very tight relationship between shock trauma, the trauma system, and the legislature. Every time there has been a need for additional funding, the legislature has supported it. The need this year is great, and we're here asking the legislators to once again say that saving lives is the most important thing to the people of Maryland.
Well, shock trauma is one of the highest volume trauma centers in the United States. The Orioles have completed a blockbuster trade 2 weeks before pitchers and catchers report to spring training. The O's have acquired starting pitcher and former Cy Young Award winner Corbin Burns from the Milwaukee Brewers in exchange for pitcher D.L. Hall, infielder Joey Ortiz, and 2024 competitive balance roundup pick. Starting pitching was at the top of the offseason's wish list for the O's, and now they have their ace. More ahead on Sports Unlimited.
Good evening, and how have you done for this first day of February? I could say it was pretty good. We saw sunshine. I was very happy to see that. I will say that, unfortunately, we're not going to have all of that again tomorrow. We have a front pushing through the area. Some rainfall already developing up here in Pennsylvania. This is going to be pushing into our area. Get ready to see some as we move through the overnight hours. Luckily, it's not going to last all night long or all day long tomorrow. So here's how things are shaping up hour by hour going through tonight. Again, as you can tell, mostly cloudy. We'll see the rain start moving in as we move into the early morning hours, but it will last a little bit into your morning commute. We're going to talk about that more, track it for you, and talk about what is coming up for your weekend too in just a bit.
Well, coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, passionate testimony in Annapolis today over a bill that would change the way servers and bartenders earn their pay. We'll have a closer look at the heated debate over tipping. The mayor touting success as the number of murders and non-fatal shootings continues to drop, but quality of life crimes are still on the rise. Why his competition says those crimes can't be ignored. Another tense day in court for former city state's attorney Marilyn Mosby. What we learned from her testimony that could shape the jury's decision. Former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby was back on the stand today as her federal mortgage fraud trial begins to wind down.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost was inside court in Greenbelt and takes us through today's testimony.
Before both sides rested their case early Thursday afternoon, the jury heard more tense testimony from Marilyn Mosby, and the former top prosecutor in Baltimore City continues to place blame on others. Heading inside for another day of testimony, Marilyn Mosby didn't say much to the media. Good morning, Miss Mosby. How are you feeling about taking the stand again today? Morning. On the stand, the former top prosecutor in Baltimore City taking a tense tone with federal prosecutors. Again, debating the issue of this letter, stating she had been in Florida for 70 days when she was trying to buy the condo in Longboat Key. Records indicate she was in Florida for just 37 days. Mosby admitting she estimated her time. But the heart of the cross-examination for prosecutors coming down to the mortgage applications. Mosby blaming her broker for filling out the forms, including the box that's checked no when asked about tax liabilities. On the stand, Marilyn telling the jury, "I believed that I reviewed it accurately," adding she thought Nick Mosby was up to date on his payment plan with the IRS, so she did not think she was delinquent or in default. But we know Nick was not up to date, and Mosby says she did not ask for proof from Nick to ensure the lien had been paid before purchasing the Longboat Key condo.
You're not just a lawyer. At the time, you were the top lawyer for a prosecution in Baltimore.
Kurt Nachman, an attorney not affiliated with this case, says Mosby's testimony may not resonate with jurors very well, especially her assertion that she trusted Nick when she heard him tell the media at a news conference that he had taken care of the tax lien.
Lawyers are supposed to know better and are supposed to read agreements that are in front of them. I saw my husband at a news conference, and he said he had cleared things up. And she's signing forms under the penalty of perjury under oath, believing something that she has said she doesn't trust the person.
Nick later admitting on the stand he lied to the press and the people of Baltimore. As for this gift letter from Nick to Marilyn, she again says she gave Nick the $5,000 as a precaution. An FBI accountant called back to the stand, testifying that from January 2014 through March 2021, there was one wire transfer from Marilyn to Nick, and it was the $5,000 in question. That testimony somewhat contradicts Nick's previous testimony, indicating his former wife transferred money a few times over the years. Despite being told the plan for a 3-week trial, Marilyn Mosby's legal battle is not over yet.
Jurors have lives. That is a critical issue that the judge has already expressed concern about.
And leaving the federal courthouse Thursday, Ms. Mosby, what are you going to think about this weekend before closing? Marilyn and her steadfast supporters remain tight-lipped as the case nears the end. Closing arguments are expected to begin Monday morning, which means this case could be in the hands of the jury by early next week. In Greenbelt, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
After serving more than a decade behind bars, a serial bank robber is back on the run. I'm Alexa Ashwell. On Maryland's Most Wanted, the crime this man is now accused of committing and why authorities fear he may strike again.
I'm Christine Frazan with what we're hearing from big city residents who say they want to help the migrants in their city, but also take care of their own.
We are tracking some rainfall across our area. Cold front is on the way through right now. Here it comes with rainfall up in Pennsylvania, but we are also wondering about tomorrow morning. That's right, Punxsutawney Phil for Groundhog Day. Is he going to forecast sunshine or clouds and see his shadow or not? I'll tell you what I think he might actually see coming up.
And as we head to break, we're going to take a peek at Towson tonight. A nice winter night out there. Stay with us. We'll be right back. City leaders across America are raising concerns that their budgets are being drained to help migrants from other countries at the expense of their own residents.
National correspondent Christine Frizzell reports on their concerns and what it really means to be a sanctuary city.
Leaders of several American cities say they've reached a breaking point.
We're here today because we really don't have a choice.
Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey facing pushback from residents for converting this rec center outside of Boston into a migrant shelter.
We sympathize with them. We as a people in our community, we love, but sometimes we love so much that we spite our own selves.
Shame on Healey! Some furious they could lose the facility for the next 4 months as they watch other aspects of daily life grow more difficult.
We have schools now, teachers who have class sizes that are increasing, students that they don't have the supports to help. We have hospitals that are, patients are in the hallways right now.
The Democratic City Councilor Erin Murphy suggesting when hers and other cities were designated sanctuary cities, they may not have thought through how much support would be needed.
There's a concern that their local resources are going to be depleted. So I think it is shedding light on what it really means to be a sanctuary city.
Similar challenges in New York City, where a tent camp is growing by the day outside of a major shelter there.
No tenemos donde vivir, no hay trabajo ni nada.
This man says we don't have anywhere to live. There's no work. Something advocates have slammed.
It's insanity for the U.S. government to welcome people from other countries into the United States and say, come in, but by the way, you can't work. What are they supposed to do?
Questions about making ends meet looming large for big cities as well. Chicago already spending more than $150 million to pay for migrants. Denver, more than $40 million. And New York City reporting spending more than $2 billion already, projecting it could be $12 billion more if things don't change. All, they say, at a cost to their residents. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
And that brings us to our national question of the day. Should people who enter the U.S. illegally across the southern border be returned to their home countries while awaiting asylum? So far, 98% of those who voted say yes. To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com, click on that Pulse tab.
I mean, it's great that the numbers have come down. People still don't feel safe.
Mayor Scott says the number of shootings and murders is down in Baltimore, but those running for mayor have a different view. Candidates for mayor had their own ideas for keeping Baltimoreans safe.
Social media buzzing today over a rescue at 40,000 feet. How Ravens tight end Mark Andrews helped a fellow passenger survive a life-threatening situation. We are following three big stories at 10:30. Ravens tight end Mark Andrews swoops in to help save a life mid-flight. How his experience with type 1 diabetes enabled him to recognize the signs of this medical emergency.
The debate over pay for servers and bartenders intensifies, why some restaurant owners say a new bill could put them out of business.
And Mayor Brandon Scott touts a January reduction in homicides, but other mayoral candidates say his message is missing the mark. And we begin there. Fox 45 News has heard from residents who say they don't feel safe despite a drop in gun violence.
Fox 45's Keith Daniels spoke to some of the mayor's challengers and joins us live with their concerns over quality of life crimes. Keith?
Kai and Mary, when you're the boss and things are going right for what you're leading, you want to talk about it. That makes sense. Still tonight, for some, if you're the mayor, speculation over the full picture. In Baltimore, the mayor with a message, showing the numbers, which are moving in the right direction. Mayor Brandon Scott with the tweet Thursday, saying, after last year's historic reductions, we are seeing signs of this trend continuing in 2024, with homicides down nearly 40% and non-fatal shootings down nearly 26% in January 2024 compared to this same time last year. An affirmative action, good for the city. But for some mayoral candidates on the campaign trail, including Sheila Dixon,
I mean, it's great that the numbers have come down. People still don't feel safe.
and Thiru Vignaraja.
Crime remains the signature issue.
There's reason to speculate. Despite the number of homicides and non-fatal shootings trending down, so-called quality of life crimes like car thefts and robberies continue to climb. Dixon at a community meeting in Roland Park 2 weeks ago, and Vignaraja tonight on the issue.
The fact that the mayor is taking a victory lap when we're just doing what every city is doing, but frankly not as well. We're still the most dangerous major city in the country. The notion that he is taking any moment to celebrate that is pretty pathetic.
I've been able to prove that we can do multiple things at one time when it comes to crime fighting. Dealing with the systemic things that impact our community, focus on the violent offenders, getting the guns off the street, but also the quality of life crimes.
The reality is that those other numbers that a lot of people in Baltimore are experiencing, why people don't feel safer, they're skyrocketing.
According to BPD's latest year-to-date numbers this year, from January 1st to January 27th, the city has seen 620 car thefts compared to 321 this same time last year. That's a 93% increase. There have been 304 robberies compared to 288 this same time last year, a 6% increase. Still, the mayor punctuating the positive.
And you know what the mayor says when he sees skyrocketing burglary numbers, car theft numbers, carjacking numbers? He says, oh, that's part of a national trend. It's a little ridiculous to take credit for something that is part of a national trend, but not take blame and responsibility for things that are going in the wrong direction.
Well, according to BPD, more year-to-date numbers are trending in the right direction. Burglaries are down 14% and aggravated assaults down 26%. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Well, Keith mentioned car thefts. Baltimore City saw a 166% increase in car thefts among juveniles last year. For months, we've been hearing from residents frustrated with the record-breaking number of cars being stolen, oftentimes by young people.
I'm 49 years old. I work hard for my little piece of crap. I be damn one of these little kids come and try to steal my cars. I'm gonna give them something they could get stolen. I'm not playing that. People work hard for their cars.
Well, if you have a stolen car story or you know somebody who's been impacted by the spike in auto thefts, we want to hear about it. Just scan that QR code on your screen, tell us what happened, or send an email to news@foxbaltimore.com.
State lawmakers hear passionate testimony on a bill that would change the way servers and bartenders earn their pay. Fox 45's Amy Simpson takes us through the debate over tipping and minimum wage.
Last agenda item for today's Senate Finance Committee in Annapolis, drawing crowds on both sides. The Pink calling for one fair wage.
We think that tips should be
a reward for good service and not a substitute for employers paying a fair wage.
And the green emblazoned with the words, "Save our tips,"
would be detrimental to me. Please don't pass this bill.
At the center of their cause, tips and pay for restaurant workers here in Maryland. Senate Bill 160 proposes eliminating the state's tip credit starting in 2027. Right now, Maryland's minimum wage for restaurant workers statewide sits at $3.63 an hour. The rest of server and bartender wages made up by customer tips. But this legislation wants to raise the hourly wage to the state's full minimum wage. Right now, that sits at $15 an hour.
Been calling for a full minimum wage with tips on top. There's a sub-minimum wage for tipped workers in Maryland that's just $3.63. It's a direct legacy of slavery.
Those who support this bill argue higher wages won't impact tips, and they claim the model has worked elsewhere.
When you pay a mostly female workforce a full minimum wage, they get tips. In fact, they get better tips than Maryland, but they're not completely dependent on customer tips to feed their families.
But those like the Restaurant Association of Maryland firmly oppose this bill.
There is no such thing as a sub-minimum wage in the restaurant industry. If an employee does not make enough tips to earn minimum wage, then the employer, by law, has to make up the difference.
Opponents claim restaurants might be forced to raise prices or add service charges to cover the rise in labor costs. And servers and bartenders are the ones who lose out.
Customers are very confused about whether or not to tip on top of that. And oftentimes what we see around the country is tip percentages go down as tips, minimum wages go up.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Well, today marks the beginning of Black History Month, a celebration of African American achievement and culture. It's also a time to recognize Black history's central role in U.S. history. Maryland has been home to dozens of prominent Black leaders, from Harriet Tubman to Frederick Douglass. The State Office of Tourism is offering several educational opportunities to teach people about the importance of Black history and how Marylanders played a key role in the fight for equality. You can find a complete list on their website. Visit maryland.org.
An unlikely hero stepped in to help save a woman's life after suffering a medical emergency on a Southwest flight from Baltimore to Phoenix today. According to a user on X, Ravens tight end Mark Andrews was on the flight and helped medical personnel use a blood glucose monitor to stabilize the woman. She was suffering from extremely low blood pressure, a condition Andrews has learned to manage as a type 1 diabetic. Paramedics were able to take care of the woman once the flight landed in Phoenix. Now, Andrews confirmed the incident today, saying in addition to the fast-acting flight attendants, the real heroes are the nurse and doctor who also happened to be on the plane. Thankfully, they were able to provide the woman with the quick assistance that she needed.
Well, people are thanking Mark Andrews today, Mary, as you can imagine. Let's take a look at some of the comments on social media. Well done to all involved in helping her out. You got that right for certain. It's obvious that not only is Mark an incredible football player, but he is also a kind, decent, and humble man. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Thank you, Mark. We love you. Such a humble person. God is amazing for allowing you to be used to assist in that moment. And here's my last one. I love this one. What a goat, bro. That says it all.
Well, ahead on Maryland's Most Wanted, a convicted bank robber on the run, how super glue and exploding paint led to his original arrest and the efforts to track him down now.
Here comes the rain again. I'm seeing it right there. We have a cold front pushing in. We can track it on the radar for you. The question is this going to impact your morning commute? Is it going to be a washout for your Friday? First day, not bad, but we'll see how the second one shapes up. I got answers for you coming up.